Right now, from coast to coast, across presidential battlegrounds, it's all coming down to this night and this choice in a history-making, rule-breaking, jaw-dropping campaign.
The American dream and our American democracy are under attack and on the line like never before.
And quite simply put, we will very quickly make America great again.
The people are choosing, the world is watching, and anything is possible until the last vote.
We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world into the Election Predictions official election center. My name is Ryan Guest, here with an updated prediction for how this historic 2024 presidential race will turn out. We're watching the final dash to vote across the nation. Right now, we're looking inside a polling station in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, one of the many critical battlegrounds we'll be closely monitoring as the night progresses. Former President Trump was in the Milwaukee area earlier today. He is expected to return to his home in Mar-a-Lago within the next hour, where he'll be watching the returns with his team and family. It's a cold, wet day in Washington, D.C., as you can see in this live look at the White House. Vice President Kamala Harris is not there right now. She was campaigning in Philadelphia earlier today and is at her campaign headquarters in Wilmington right now. After all the twists, turns, the drama, and the suspense, it all comes down to tonight. All 50 U.S. states and the District of Columbia will cast their votes to decide who will lead the country for the next 4 years. It's a heated fight for 270 electoral votes, the magic number needed to win the White House. It's election night in America 2024, and we have our first results of the night here with exit poll data coming in from across the core battleground states, starting with the top concerns, what has been on voters' minds today as they step inside the ballot box. Well, no surprise, the economy tops the list, as it so often does. 45% of respondents cited it as their top concern. Immigration follows at 18%, with healthcare at 15%, and then foreign policy, crime and safety, and abortion each coming in below 10%. When it comes to who voters trust more to handle the economy, the majority lean towards Donald Trump. 53% of respondents felt he would do better on this front, compared to 45% for Kamala Harris. Yet when it comes to overall candidate favorability among these same respondents, Kamala Harris emerges as slightly more popular than Donald Trump. 49% of voters reported a favorable opinion of the vice president, compared to 45% who viewed her unfavorably, with 7% undecided. This results in a net positive favorability of 4% for Harris. Donald Trump, on the other hand, shows negative, albeit slightly improved, favorability numbers compared to previous cycles. 54% of respondents hold an unfavorable view of him, while 45% have a favorable opinion, leading to a net favorability of negative 9%. Regarding the vice presidential candidates, Tim Walz, the Democrat, stands out as the most popular among the 4 presidential and vice presidential contenders, with a net positive rating of 7%. 45% of respondents view him favorably, compared to 38% unfavorably. On the Republican side, J.D. Vance mirrors the less favorable ratings seen with Donald Trump. Vance has a net unfavorability of negative 6%, with 40% of respondents viewing him favorably against 46% unfavorably. However, it's worth noting that his numbers have seen a noticeable improvement following a strong performance in the early October debates. Finally, let's examine another intriguing aspect of the exit poll data, the motivation behind voters' choices. Interestingly, 68% of respondents indicated that their vote today was cast in support of their preferred candidate. However, nearly a third of voters, 30%, said that their vote was cast against their opponent, highlighting a significant portion of voters driven by opposition rather than outright support. Alright, we are just seconds away from the first results of the night, coming up here at the top of the hour, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Sit back, try to relax. We'll be back with the first results right after the break. We've reached our first major poll closing of the night. The clock is just a few moments from striking 7 p.m. here on the East Coast, where we will receive our first results from the 2024 presidential race from 6 states totaling 60 electoral votes. We're all on the edge of our seats, especially for the returns from the battleground state of Georgia, where early results may offer us a hint of where the election could be headed tonight. All right, we have our first projections of the night. EP Official now projects that former President Donald Trump will win Indiana. Trump beats Harris in Indiana, carrying the Hoosier state's 11 electoral votes, the first projection of the night. Trump is also projected to win Kentucky, adding another 8 electoral votes to his tally as expected. We can also make a call in South Carolina, 9 electoral votes. The former president is projected to carry South Carolina. On the other side, Vice President Kamala Harris has won the state of Vermont, where 3 electoral votes will go to the Democrat. Harris secures a win in Vermont. Georgia, with its 16 crucial electoral votes, remains too early to call, and the first votes here may serve as our first true indicator of tonight's overall outcome. Remember, President Biden achieved a surprising victory in Georgia by just 0.2% in 2020, making it the closest state in that election. And in Virginia, once a pivotal battleground, it's now seen as a reliable Democrat stronghold over the last decade and a half, yet it's also too close to call at the moment. Biden was the first Democratic presidential candidate since 1944 to carry the Commonwealth's 13 electoral votes by a double-digit margin in 2020. All right, let's take a look at the current state of the Electoral College count. As it stands, Donald Trump has secured 19 electoral votes, while Kamala Harris has 3. Remember, a candidate needs 270 electoral votes to win the White House. We've got a long way to go tonight, and as you can see, the states shaded in light gray still have their polls open, with voters in line and heading to the polling booths across the rest of the country. This includes Florida, where precincts have closed in most of the states except for the westernmost counties in the Panhandle, where polling stations will remain open until 8 p.m. EP Official will not be making a call in this state until the very last people have had their say in this historic presidential contest. We'll be back with more results right after the break. We're approaching another critical round of poll closings in the Harris-Trump presidential race just moments from now, here at 7:30 p.m. on the East Coast. That's when polls will close in the battlegrounds of North Carolina and Ohio, as well as West Virginia. Together, these states account for 38 of the 270 electoral votes needed to win the White House. We have an EP official projection in West Virginia. Donald Trump is projected to carry the state and its 4 electoral votes. This is one less electoral vote than it awarded Trump in the 2020 election due to population shifts reflected in the census. It's too early to call in North Carolina, with 16 electoral votes at stake. This is one more than in 2020 following reapportionment. North Carolina remains a key battleground tonight and a must-win for the Trump campaign, but it's too early to call right now. As for the state of Ohio, another must-win for the former Republican president. Ohio, once a critical swing state, now leans firmly Republican. No GOP presidential candidate has been elected to the White House without winning Ohio. With 17 electoral votes at stake tonight, it's also too early to call. Let's take another look at the Electoral College map where it stands right now. 5 electoral votes from West Virginia raise Trump's total to 32, while just 3 electoral votes have been awarded to Harris so far from Vermont. Virginia and Georgia remain too close to call, and they're now joined by Ohio and North Carolina. Let's get a key race alert right now. Precincts are about to close in 16 states and the District of Columbia. This is the biggest round of poll closings tonight, with a whopping 172 electoral votes at stake. Almost a third of the total up for grabs in the next hour, including the absolutely pivotal battleground of Pennsylvania. We've got a whole lot of projections to make right now. All right, we've got some EP official projections right now. Let's start in Illinois. EP official projects Kamala Harris will carry the state of Illinois. The vice president will win its 19 electoral votes. In New Jersey, 14 electoral votes here. Harris, again, is the projected winner. In Massachusetts, 11 more electoral votes go to Harris here, as the Democrat carries Massachusetts. Kamala Harris will win in Maryland with its 10 electoral votes, another deep blue state going into the vice president's column. It's another win for Harris in Connecticut with 7 electoral votes, a win for Kamala Harris in Connecticut, no surprises in any of these states, and no surprise in Rhode Island either. 4 more electoral votes go to Harris from Rhode Island. The vice president wins in Rhode Island and in the president's home state of Delaware, a state Joe Biden served in the United States Senate for almost 40 years. Delaware goes blue, as does the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., with its 3 electoral votes awarded via the 23rd Amendment in 1961. And finally, we project that Maine's 1st congressional district will go to Harris. However, the other 3 electoral votes, including 2 awarded to the statewide winner and 1 from the 2nd district, remain too close to call at this time. For Trump, we have projections in several states as well. The former president wins in Tennessee. Its 11 electoral votes will go to Trump. And in the state of Missouri, 10 electoral votes in Missouri are added to the Trump camp's total. The Republican is also the projected winner in Alabama. 9 more electoral votes go to Trump from Alabama. The former president wins in Alabama. And in Oklahoma, 7 electoral votes from Oklahoma go to Trump, extending its streak of Republican presidential victories to 15. That's tied for the record. And finally, in Mississippi, another 6 electoral votes go to the Trump campaign as the former president carries Mississippi. We are currently unable to make projections in 5 states. Starting with Florida, it's too close to call. Polls have now officially closed statewide in the Sunshine State. We've been closely monitoring the returns over the last hour, keeping in mind that about half of Florida's voters tend to vote early, and these are the numbers we've been seeing so far. We expect the Election Day vote to be counted much faster now as we edge closer to determining the fate of Florida's 30 electoral votes. In Pennsylvania, it's also too early to call. This state is both a keystone in name and in practice, arguably the most important state on tonight's electoral map. Both campaigns have spent more money here than in any other state, hoping to secure its 19 electoral votes, which have become the largest prize among tonight's true battlegrounds. Maine is too early to call as well, including its statewide race and its congressional districts. 4 electoral votes are at stake, with 2 going to the statewide winner and 1 each to the candidate with the largest share of votes in its 2 congressional districts. It's important to note that if no candidate reaches 50%, Maine's statewide contest will be decided via ranked choice voting, which means we might not be able to call this race for a couple of weeks as the state tabulates those second and third choice votes later this month. Finally, it's too early to call in New Hampshire, where 4 electoral votes are at stake. We've already been tracking votes coming in from the state, with just a few polling locations remaining open until 8 p.m. here. Let's take a look at the Electoral College count now and how all of these 8 o'clock projections are shaping the race to 270 electoral votes. Donald Trump now holds 75 electoral votes, continuing to lead Kamala Harris, who has secured 75 electoral votes. Currently, 8 states remain too close to call, with no projections yet. These states are shaded in yellow on our maps. Additionally, more than half of all available electoral votes are in states where the polls have not yet closed, shaded in white, including the key battleground states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. All 3 will see their polls close statewide at the top of the hour, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's get a key race alert in the states where we do have votes in right now. It's official now, EP can project that Donald Trump has won the state of Florida. The former president will carry Florida's 30 electoral votes, providing a significant boost to his electoral count. A loss here would have made it impossible for Trump to secure the necessary 270 electoral votes. Historically a battleground, Florida has been decided by less than 6 points in each of the last 8 election cycles. However, it has trended decidedly to the right in recent elections, and Trump appears set to carry Florida by the largest margin for a Republican in decades. The final projection shows the former president leading Vice President Harris by almost 700,000 votes, 52.3% to 46.1%, a 6-point margin almost twice as large as Trump's winning margin in 2020. With Florida's 30 electoral votes, Trump's tally now grows to 105, compared to Harris's 75. We're closely monitoring the states still too close to call, most notably Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania at this hour. It's 8:30 on the East Coast, and polls are closing in the state of Arkansas, and we've got an EP official projection coming in right now. Former President Donald Trump is the projected winner in Arkansas. He will carry its 6 electoral votes. Arkansas has voted Republican in every presidential election since Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton carried his home state in 1996. With an additional 6 electoral votes from Arkansas, Donald Trump's total increases to 111 in the race to 270 electoral votes, while Vice President Harris trails with 75. We've got a key race alert right now. EP official projects that former President Donald Trump will win the state of Ohio, adding 17 more electoral votes to the Republican count for the night. Ohio has historically been a crucial state for Republicans, with the party that won Ohio winning the White House in all but 3 election cycles since 1896. However, Ohio's role as a decisive battleground has diminished as the state has shifted to the right since President Obama's last victory there in 2012. It voted for Trump by 8 points in both 2016 and 2020, and is on pace to back Trump by an even larger margin in 2024. The final projection shows the former president leading by 580,000 votes, 54.3% to 43.9%, a 10.4-point advantage. This election's early vote initially favored Harris, but as in 2020, it was merely a precursor to Trump's lead as Election Day votes were counted. With a 10-point margin of victory, Trump improves upon his 2020 performance in Ohio by 2 points. As we look at the electoral map now, Trump has extended his lead to 128 electoral votes compared to Harris's 75. Remember, 270 electoral votes are needed to win the White House. If Trump wins, he would become just the second U.S. president to serve non-consecutive terms. There are still many states too close to call, so let's get a key race alert in some of them right now. Voting is coming to a close in 14 states as we approach the second biggest wave of results here at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. A massive 156 electoral votes are up for grabs, with several key battleground states in focus, ranging from Arizona in the Southwest to Michigan and Wisconsin in the Midwest. We have a projection right now. EP projects that Kamala Harris will win the state of New York. Harris defeats Trump in the former president's former home state, securing New York's 28 electoral votes. There's no surprise here, as the Empire State hasn't backed a Republican presidential candidate since 1984. We also have a few calls in favor of Trump. The former president wins in Louisiana, carrying with it its 8 electoral votes. The Republican is also projected to win Kansas, adding 8 electoral votes to his total from the Sunflower State. In Nebraska, Trump is expected to carry 4 out of 5 electoral votes, winning the statewide contest, and in Nebraska's 1st and 3rd congressional districts, though the 2nd district remains too close to call, a district that Biden won by 7% in 2020 and could be crucial tonight. In North Dakota, we project Trump will secure its 3 electoral votes, and the same goes for neighboring South Dakota, where another 3 electoral votes will go to the former president. Lastly, Trump is also the projected winner in Wyoming, gaining another 3 electoral votes. We cannot make a projection at this hour in Texas, as polls have now closed statewide in the Lone Star State, with 40 electoral votes up for grabs. Trump's 5.5-point win in 2020 was the narrowest victory for a Republican in nearly 20 years. In Michigan, with its 15 electoral votes, it's too early to call right now in this critical battleground. It's a state the Harris campaign has labeled a must-win tonight. No Democrat has been elected president without winning Michigan since Jimmy Carter in 1976. It's also too early to call in Arizona, the second closest state in the 2020 election. President Biden became just the second Democrat to win Arizona since 1952 by a margin of just 0.3% 4 years ago. As always in Arizona, we expect to see a large first drop of votes from Maricopa County, encompassing the Phoenix metro, sometime after 10 p.m., as the state places an embargo on any vote drops until then. Minnesota is also too early to call. This state, with its 10 electoral votes, has voted Democratic in 12 consecutive presidential elections, the longest streak still active today. Its neighbor to the east, Wisconsin, is also too close to call, with another 10 electoral votes at stake here in an essential battleground tonight, after Biden flipped it back into the Democratic column by less than a point in 2020 after Trump had carried it by less than a point in 2016. It's the only state to be decided by less than a point in both of those elections. Colorado is too early to call, with another 10 electoral votes at stake. Colorado has swung harder to the left than any other state in the country over the last 10 years, and Harris is certainly expected to win here tonight. Iowa is also too close to call, as polls close in the Hawkeye states, with 6 electoral votes in Iowa, a key battleground in the Obama era that has trended rapidly in favor of Republicans in recent years, handing Donald Trump victories in 2016 and 2020 by 9 and 8 points, respectively. Finally, the state of New Mexico is too early to call, with 5 electoral votes in New Mexico. It voted for Biden by 11 points in 2020 and has backed Democrats in 7 of the last 8 presidential elections. All right, let's take a look at the updated electoral map. Republican Donald Trump maintains his lead with 155 electoral votes to his name over Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris's 103. Remember, just a simple majority of 270 electoral votes is needed to win the presidency out of the 538 up for grabs across the country. Voters are still making their way to the ballot boxes in just 9 states in the western United States now, one of which is the deep blue home state of Kamala Harris, California, with a colossal 54 electoral votes to award. 14 states remain still too close to call. We're tracking the trends as the returns come in, and on that note, we have a key race alert coming in right now. We've got a projection to make in Colorado. Kamala Harris will carry Colorado in its 10 electoral votes, an expected result after President Biden won it by 13.5 points in 2020. The projected final result here has Vice President Harris up by 11.5 points over Trump, 53.8% to 42.4%, translating to a 360,000 vote lead. As you look at the county map, again, you'll see an 11-point separation between Harris and Trump here in Colorado. It wasn't long ago that this state was grouped amongst the key battleground states on the map, yet here it gets called shortly after polls close. These 10 electoral votes are added to the vice president's growing tally, raising her to 113 on the night, though she still trails Trump's 155. EP official projects that Kamala Harris is the winner in Virginia, securing 13 electoral votes for the vice president. The Trump campaign had relatively little presence in the state compared to previous, more competitive elections in Virginia. Biden's 10-point victory in 2020 was the largest margin for a candidate from either party since 1988, and polling averages headed into tonight showed Harris with a comfortable lead. Here's the projected final total. Harris holds a 51.5% share of the vote to Trump's 46.4%, a much narrower 5-point margin with 223,000 votes separating the two candidates in the Commonwealth. EP official can also call the race in Iowa, where former President Trump is projected to win. Trump secures 6 electoral votes in Iowa with a projected final tally showing him leading by 170,000 votes, 54% to 43.4%. That's a double-digit margin of 10.5%, similar to the lead the Republican has in Ohio, as these two Midwest states continue to vote very closely in tandem with one another. With these results, the Electoral College map updates as follows. Donald Trump now holds 161 electoral votes, while Kamala Harris's count rises to 126 with her victory in Virginia. All right, we have another projection right now in New Hampshire. EP official projects that Kamala Harris will win the state of New Hampshire, securing its 4 electoral votes. New Hampshire, often considered the only true battleground in the Northeast, over the last several decades has been decided by a single-digit margin in 8 consecutive elections now. and that trend continues tonight. Democrats have now won New Hampshire for a 6th consecutive election. The final projected result has Harris leading by 6.5 points, similar to Biden's 7-point win here 4 years ago. She leads by 50,000 votes, 51.5% to 45.0%. EP official can also project that Kamala Harris will win in New Mexico. Vice President Kamala Harris will carry the state and its 5 electoral votes. With a final tally of 52.8% to 44.2%, it's an approximate 8.5-point margin here, 2 points narrower than President Biden's victory in New Mexico 4 years ago. Nevertheless, Harris is the winner in New Mexico, as it remains in the Democratic column for the 5th consecutive election. Following these projections, here's where the Electoral College map stands right now. Harris's count increases to 135, but she still trails Trump's 161. A total of 270 electoral votes is required to win the presidency. Currently, it stands at 161 to 135. We'll be back with the next round of poll closings at the top of the hour. We're moments away from another significant round of poll closings, as voting is about to conclude in 4 states here at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, including the key battleground of Nevada. A total of 21 electoral votes are on the line right now. EP official projects that Donald Trump will carry the state of Utah, expectedly securing its 6 electoral votes. Trump is also projected to win in Montana, adding 4 electoral votes as the state gained 1 following the census. Utah and Montana go to Trump. Nevada is the race we're all watching most closely. 6 electoral votes are at stake, and it's too close to call in this critical battleground. Democrats carried Nevada by margins of less than 3 percentage points in both 2016 and 2020. We don't expect to see the first votes come in out of Nevada for a while, so stay tuned for that. With the latest projections in Montana and Utah, former President Donald Trump has marginally increased his electoral vote count. He now leads Harris with 171 electoral votes to the vice president's 135. The race to 270 electoral votes is shaping up just as we had forecasted heading into tonight, with it likely coming down to narrow margins in the upper Rust Belt trio of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, as well as the Sun Belt trio of Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. Let's get a key race alert for some of these states right here. We have another projection. It's a big one. Texas, with its 40 electoral votes, will go to Donald Trump. He is the projected winner in Texas. The Lone Star State, along with Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, and Iowa, represent the former president's Republican wall coming into this election. He needed to win all of them, as any crack would have likely proven fatal for his path to 270. He's 3 for 4 now. Take a look here at the results. Once again, despite Democratic turnout bombs in large metro areas, Republicans continue to make inroads with Hispanic voters in the Rio Grande Valley In our final projected tally, Trump holds 52.1% of the vote to Vice President Harris's 45.7%. More than 11 million votes have been counted here, and it's a margin of 6.4% separating the two right now, similar to the lead he has in Florida, and almost a full point larger than his 2020 margin. Now, taking an updated look at the race to 270, Texas, of course, provides a major bump to Trump's electoral vote count with 211 votes to his name up to this point. Vice President Harris trails behind with 135. That's right, EP Official projects that Donald Trump will carry the state of North Carolina, a crucial state marking the first true battleground we're calling for either candidate tonight. This is another key victory for the Republican as he secures 16 more electoral votes. North Carolina was an absolute must-hold for Trump's path to 270, and based on the final projected results, he leads Vice President Kamala Harris by a similar margin as in 2020, 1.3%, with a raw vote margin of about 70,000 votes. Trump holds 49.6%. Harris has 48.3% as North Carolina stays red at the presidential level for the fourth consecutive election. As discussed earlier, the two candidates' paths to 270 have largely been independent of each other outside of the key battlegrounds. North Carolina, along with New Mexico, highlighted that distinction. For Vice President Harris, her path depends on expected wins on the West Coast, where Democratic strongholds should soon add to her tally once polls close. She'll also need to hold her current leads in Minnesota and New Hampshire. On Trump's side, he needs to secure Idaho, Alaska, and maintain his advantage in Texas. These are the essential victories the candidates must achieve before their paths intersect in the remaining battlegrounds that remain too close to call. Those critical states are Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in the Rust Belt, and Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada across the Sun Belt. Polls are about to close in 4 states out west, including key Democratic strongholds along the Pacific Coast: Washington, Oregon, and California. There are 78 electoral votes at stake as we approach 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time. Let's take a look. The biggest prize of the night, California, with its 54 electoral votes, will go to Vice President Kamala Harris. Despite losing 1 electoral vote due to reapportionment, California still provides a significant boost to Harris's electoral count from her home state. Moving up the coastline to Washington, we can also project the state for the vice president, adding 12 more electoral votes to her total. Harris will win Washington state. Likewise, in Oregon, Harris is the projected winner of 8 electoral votes, as Democrats have once again kept the Pacific Blue Wall intact for the 8th consecutive presidential election. One projection for Donald Trump, EP Official projects Trump will carry the state of Idaho, securing 4 electoral votes for the former president. Let's now take a look at the updated Electoral College map. Trump maintains his lead, but it has narrowed significantly after these projections. He now stands at 231 electoral votes, while Harris climbs to 209. Remember, 270 electoral votes are needed to win. With the polls now closed everywhere except Hawaii and Alaska, we anticipate making a number of major projections in the next hour or two, from the key races still too close to call. This is a big one. EP Official now projects that Donald Trump is the winner in Georgia, adding 16 pivotal electoral votes to his tally. Trump had maintained a lead throughout the night, while Harris slowly chipped away at it as heavily Democratic vote drops from the Atlanta metro area came in. But now our decision desk is confident that Trump's lead will hold. Georgia was fiercely contested by both campaigns, but Trump focused most heavily on flipping the Peach State back into the Republican column, viewing it as a must-win for his path to 270 electoral votes. In 2020, Biden rode a wave of record turnout among black voters in the Atlanta metro area to secure victory, and Harris received similar support in 2024. However, Trump managed to win back enough disaffected Republicans in rural Georgia to overcome the narrow deficit he faced 4 years ago. He now holds 49.5% of the vote to Harris's 48.6%, with Harris continuing to underperform Biden's margins by a couple of points in key states across the country. This win brings Trump closer to the magic number of 270 electoral votes, with 247 now compared to Harris's 209. Just 7 states remain too close to call, while precincts are still open in Alaska and Hawaii. Assuming Alaska backs Trump and Hawaii goes to Harris, the scenarios for each candidate to reach 270 are becoming clearer. Trump's most straightforward path is by winning Pennsylvania, where he currently leads. A win in Alaska, Maine's 2nd district, and Pennsylvania would give him 22 more electoral votes, just enough to hit 270. For Harris, she must hold on to Minnesota and most likely Michigan, where she's closing the gap, and then secure at least 2 more states to reach the 270 mark. Kamala Harris has held on to the state of Minnesota. EP Official projects the Democratic vice president will carry Minnesota's 10 electoral votes. The final projected vote total has Harris leading Trump by more than 125,000 votes, with a 4.5-point margin. Minnesota, once again, votes Democratic for the 13th consecutive presidential election, the longest such streak of any state still in effect. Trump did manage to make inroads, flipping Winona County and others along the Wisconsin border, but has again ultimately fallen short in Minnesota. We also have a projection in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. One of the most reliably Republican states in the country, Nebraska, like Maine, has split awarding their electoral votes by congressional district. Biden flipped the district in 2020, winning by 6.5 points. Harris is projected to win here by a greater 7-point margin, with 23,000 votes separating her and Trump as Democrats extract another electoral vote out of deep red Nebraska. Let's now take another look at the electoral map. This single electoral vote could prove crucial. Earlier this year, the Nebraska state legislature attempted to eliminate the split electoral vote system, aiming to help Trump in his path to 270. That's because, hypothetically, if Harris holds the traditional blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, she would reach exactly 270 electoral votes. Trump, with wins across the Sun Belt in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia, plus Alaska, would end up with 268. In this scenario, had Nebraska's 2nd district flipped to Trump, it would result in a 269 to 269 tie, potentially leading to a constitutional crisis where the House of Representatives would vote for the president, a scenario likely favoring Trump. It's that time. Our final poll closing of the night is here. It's midnight on the East Coast, and polls have just closed in Alaska and Hawaii, where we have a projection to make right now. As expected, EP official projects Vice President Kamala Harris will win the presidential contest in the Aloha State. Hawaii, with its 4 electoral votes, goes blue for the 10th consecutive election cycle. Meanwhile, it's too early to call in Alaska. We don't expect to see the first drop of votes for another hour or two. Alaska has been reliably Republican since its admission into the Union in 1959, although Donald Trump's 10-point win in 2020 was the smallest margin for a Republican there since 1968. With Hawaii in her column, Harris raises her electoral tally to 224, but she continues to trail former President Donald Trump, who leads with 247 electoral votes in the all-important race to 270. Let's get a key race alert right here. EP official can now project that Kamala Harris will win the statewide race in Maine, securing the 2 electoral votes awarded to the statewide winner, in addition to her victory in Maine's 1st congressional district. While it became clear earlier that Harris was likely to hold this state, our decision desk needed to wait to see whether Harris's vote share would drop below 50%, which would have triggered ranked choice voting tabulation involving non-major party candidates. However, Harris is projected to remain above 50%, with 51.6% of the vote to Trump's 44%, a margin of 7.5 points, slightly below Biden's 9-point margin in 2020. So Harris secures 3 out of 4 electoral votes in Maine. However, Trump will hold on to the 1 electoral vote from Maine's 2nd congressional district, which covers the rural northern part of the state, a district he won in both 2016 and 2020. This marks the 3rd consecutive election in which Maine has split its electoral votes between Democrats and Republicans. And as we take a look at the map here, Trump gains 1 vote up to 248. Harris gains 2, lifting her up to 226. We are now able to project that Donald Trump is the winner in Wisconsin, securing the state's 10 electoral votes. This is a huge victory for Trump and the Republicans as they flip Wisconsin for the second time in 3 presidential elections. Trump leads by half a percentage point here in the final projected tally, with a margin of about 45,000 votes, securing 49.3% of the vote to Harris's 48.8%. This victory is critical for Trump, as he has once again outperformed the polls in Wisconsin, just as he did in 2016 and 2020. And this marks the first breach in the Democrats' blue wall, and it may not be the last. Democrats are running out of ballots in Pennsylvania to make up Trump's lead, where a win would secure 270 electoral votes for him. Alternatively, a victory in Arizona, where late-arriving absentee and election day votes have brought Trump within just a few thousand votes, could also put him over the top. The electoral count now stands at 258 for Trump and 226 for Harris. The race to 270 is coming down to the wire. EP official has now projected that Donald Trump will carry Alaska. It's official. 3 more electoral votes will be added to Trump's final tally, bringing his total to 261, less than votes shy of the 270 needed to win. Go, the first major victory of the night for the Democrats, as EP official projects Kamala Harris has won the state of Michigan. The 15 electoral votes from Michigan are a much needed boost for her campaign, as losing Michigan could have severely damaged Harris's path to 270 electoral votes. Looking at the final projected result, Harris leads by just under 60,000 votes, with a margin of 1.1%. While Trump has significantly cut into the nearly 3-point margin that President Biden had in 2020, it wasn't enough to flip Michigan. The state has once again proven to be the bluest of the core Rust Belt trio, likely to vote to the left of both Wisconsin and Pennsylvania for a 3rd straight cycle. The final tally in Michigan is 49.6% for Harris to 48.5% for Trump, a 1.1% margin. Now the focus turns to whether late-arriving absentee ballots in Philadelphia can favor Harris enough to push her over the top in Pennsylvania, where she still currently trails Trump. The electoral count now stands at 261 for Trump and 241 for Harris in the race to 270. here it is, after countless hours of tense vote counting. From the presidential level down to municipal elections across the country, we can now project that former President Donald Trump has been elected the 47th President of the United States. He will become just the second U.S. president to serve a second non-consecutive term in the White House. Despite Vice President Kamala Harris's strong efforts to unify the Democratic Party after President Joe Biden's late withdrawal, her campaign has come up short. This projection comes as EP official now calls Pennsylvania for Donald Trump, securing the Keystone State's 19 electoral votes. Pennsylvania, which was the tipping point state in 2016 and nearly played the same role in 2020, has proven decisive once again. In the final projected tally, Trump leads Harris by just 0.2 of a percentage point, with a margin of only about 13,000 votes separating them, a result even closer than the previous two cycles here. This crucial win in Pennsylvania pushes Trump above 270 electoral votes, with a total of 280 to Harris's 241. Trump has flipped the states of Georgia, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania as the electoral map begins to resemble the one from 8 years ago. The races in Arizona and Nevada remain too close to call. Donald Trump has been declared the winner in Arizona. In a late-arriving vote drop, EP official projects the president-elect will carry this highly competitive Sunbelt state's 11 electoral votes. Trump is projected to defeat Vice President Kamala Harris by just under 34,000 votes, with a margin of exactly 1 percentage point, 49.4% to Harris's 48.4%. Interestingly, Trump becomes the first Republican to carry Arizona without winning the most votes in Maricopa County, the left-trending urban area that delivered Joe Biden his narrow victory 4 years ago. Biden had won Arizona by just 10,500 votes in 2020, securing a 0.3% margin. But it has now swung back to the Republican column, voting red for the 17th time in the last 19 presidential elections. With this win, President-elect Donald Trump adds 11 more electoral votes to his total, bringing him up to 291. Nevada remains the only state outstanding where the race is still too close to call as we await more vote drops. We can finally make a call now in Nevada, where EP official projects that Vice President Kamala Harris will hold Nevada's 6 electoral votes for the Democrats. It's been a week to forget for the party, but we can now project that this narrow lead will hold. Harris holds 48.7% to Trump's 48%, for a margin of 0.7%, or almost 10,000 votes separating the two right now. This margin is much smaller than the 2.4-point victories Democrats enjoyed in Nevada in both 2016 and 2020, but nonetheless, Trump comes up just short. Taking a look at the final 2024 Electoral College map, Nevada's 6 electoral votes raise Harris to 241 electoral votes, while Trump holds at 297. That does it, though, for this 2024 election night prediction. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, as I have put weeks' worth of work into it. Feel free to disagree or leave any comments, questions, or concerns down below. I appreciate feedback regardless of whether it's positive or negative. Shout out to my channel members in the description below. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, and please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. You can check out more content from my channel here. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP out.